Hi Kadosh, Boker or Masechet Gittin Daf Bet Amud Aleph 22a says the Gemara, right? Atzitz shel echad v'zraim shel acher. Imagine you've got the atzitz. Well, remember the atzitz is the pottery, is the flower pot, right? That has a hole in it in the bottom. It belongs to one person. Now the things which are being grown inside of it belongs to somebody else. Machar bala atzitz bala zraim. If the person that owns the atzitz sells it to the bala zraim, Kevan shemashach, once he does meshicha of the atzitz, kana, he acquires the atzitz. With the atzitz, since it's salush, it's considered metaltalin, movable objects. Anything which is a movable object, a tangible object, you acquire it with meshicha, drawing it forth. So when you draw it towards you, that's considered yours. Machar balazraim balatzitz. But if the one that owned the seeds sells it to the balatzitz, lo kana, he's not going to be koneh ad sheachzik bezraim until he makes a chazaka in the zraim in itself. Right, because since it's considered like mechubar, so if it's like karka is not nikne b'meshicha. You can't draw forth a piece of land. You can only do chazaka. So you need a chazaka in order to do this. Okay, it says the Gemara atzitz uzraim shelechad. What happens if the atzitz and the zraim belong to one person? Umecharan laacher, and they sold it to somebody else. So chzik bazraim kanat atzitz. If you made the chazaka in the zraim, you acquire automatically the atzitz nakuv as well. This is what we learned. That when you have properties which do not have achrayut, they don't have guarantees, which are like metaltalin, basically movable objects. They're going to be acquired with things that do have achrayut, which is karka. The kesef whether it's going to be with money, with a document, or the chazaka. Hechzik, right? Why? Because these are the three ways to acquire, right? Karka, right? Money, document, chazaka. Hechzik b'atzitz. If you made a chazaka on the atzitz, so af atzitz lo kana. You weren't even acquiring the atzitz. Ad shechzik b'zraim, until you're going to be acquiring the zraim. Okay, nekuda. Next, nikvo ba'aretz v'nofo b'chutz haaretz. Imagine right now you have an atzitz that was placed on the gvul of Eretz Yisrael. The nekev is found in Eretz Yisrael, but the nofo, which means the actual the branches and everything else, is going to be in chutz haaretz. What's the halacha? Right? Abaye says batar nekavozin. We go after the hole, and since the yinika, the nourishment comes from Eretz Yisrael, it's in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it's going to be chal all the dinim of Eretz Yisrael, whether it's going to be trumot masrot and these things. But Rava says no, batar nofozin. We go after the branches on the top. We don't care about where the nourishment is coming. We depend where the majority of the tree is outside, right? What's inside? Just the hole, right? Other than that, everything's outside. B'de'ashrush. However, though, if it already had shorashim in the ground, nobody argues, right? That means there's no machloket. Everybody goes that makom hanof is not kovea. Why? Because we go after the shorashim. We go after the roots. Where are your roots? Are your roots here? Or are your roots somewhere else? We go after the roots. The roots are everything, right? Ki plige, when is a machloket? Bedelo ashush, when there's no shorashim. Meaning it's in Sichenuku, but there's still no roots coming down, and therefore you could still move it. Okay? Ubedeashush lo plige. And even when it's going to be that you have the shorashim, there's no machloket, right? So, sorry, the Gemara asks, what? If there's no shorashim, there's no machloket between them, right? He says, we learned in the Mishnah shte ganot, when you have two gardens, one of them is on top of the other one, right? Like this. And you got vegetables in between the two of them. Rabbi Meir says, it belongs to the one on the top. Rabbi Yudah says, tachton. So it's mashma that the machloket is, are we going after the Ikar Yinikata Yerek, which is going to be from the Ikar, from the Tachton or the Elyon? So according to this, Rabbi Yehuda comes and he holds that Ikar Yinikata Yerek is from the Avir Derech Nofo, right? And even in a place where it's got Shirashim B'toch HaKarka, you have it that way, right? He says, why? Because that's how we're holding. So therefore you see that even if it is Shorashim inside, there's still going to be a machloket. Look at this machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir to do with the garden. There's a garden on the top, garden on the bottom, and then there's fruits in between, right? You've got shorashim, but it's not on the bottom, right? But the shorashim are on the bottom, but it's going towards the top. So what do? So answers the Gemara, hatam over there, kilitani tama. It's reasoning. It's the different reason. Amar Rabbi Meir says Rabbi Meir, my mitzah alyon litol tafaro, right? If the top one wanted to take away the afar, so en kan yerek, there's no yerakot. Amar Rabbi Yudah says, my mitzah tachton lamalot ginato afar. What about if the bottom one wanted to put afar on his property? In Kanyanik, there's also no yerek. Meaning each one is saying, 1 second, at the end of the day, the top one is saying, listen, if I remove my ground, you don't have yerekot anymore. Because I've got my ground up here. This is the top one. I've got my ground up here. If I start removing this ground, you don't have yirakot here on the side, like here. You don't have any yirakot here. The bottom one says, yeah, but if I wanted to fill up my land with afar, I could just fill it up and there's no more yirakot either. So each one has a ta'ana. Who does it belong to? The akati. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. So that means you can't bring a proof from over there. Okay. The akati, but still, are you going to tell me with that shush that if it's got shorashim, there's no machloket between them? But remember, we kept on saying that there was a machloket, right? Do we go after the nof or the hole? But then we said, but there's no machloket if it's got shorashim. If it's got shorashim according to everybody, you go after the shorashim. Says the Gemara, v'akati b'dashush u'aplik. There's no machloket. V'tani we learned in a brayta. Ilan miksato ba'aretz v'tzlo b'chutz. Says, what happens if you have a tree that's again on the border of Israel? Part of it is in Eretz Yisrael, part of it is the chutz haaretz. Tevel, right? So therefore, it's tevel, which means that it's considered that you didn't take off untithed produce. Chulin, it's got both together. You got tevel and chulin mixed together. Why? Because part of it is getting inikah from itself. It's getting inikah from chutz haaretz. Yeah? So therefore, you've got both. These are the words of Rabbi. But Rashbag says, Hagadel bechiyuv chayav, Hagadel beptur patur. It says, depends where it grew. On the branches and everything, which are going to be on the inside of Israel, you're chayav in trumot, and masrot, and everything. And on the things which are going to be on the outside of Israel, they're going to be patur. So says the Gemara, my love, are we not dealing with mikzat nofo ba'aretz, mikzat nofo b'chutz haaretz, that the tree, part of it is in Israel, and part of it, meaning that the actual branches, part of them is inside and part of them is outside. And so the Gemara, no, mikzat shorashim ba'aretz, mikzat shorashim, part of the roots are in chutz haaretz, and part of the roots are in Eretz Yisrael. So what's the reasoning of the Rashbag that he says that the ones which are going to be growing in Eretz Yisrael are going to be chayav trumot masrot, right? And the ones which are going to be on the outside is going to be patur, right? The mafsik tzuma, because there's a rock which is in between them. Which means since there's a rock, right, which is in between them throughout the entire path, right? So therefore, in such a case, right, the Rashbag holds that the shorashim on each side are going to come and it's going to bring up srap only for the perot on that side. It's only going to bring nourishment from that side. So therefore, the ones which are growing in Israel are chayav, because they're getting nourishment only from Israel. And the ones which are outside, they're only getting nourishment from the outside. Because since there's a rock in between, that's stopping the nourishment from transferring from each other. My time, Rabbi, what's the reasoning of Rabbi that he says that it's you got tevel and chulin mixed together? Tehadri arve. Because since at the end of the day, it comes back up in the same meaning, even though the roots are separated and there's a rock in between, but since together it comes up on the tree, so therefore it mixes up together again. So since it mixes up together, you've got half. So therefore in the same tree, you've got half chulin and half tevel. What is the machloke between them exactly? More savar avira mevalbel. One of them holds that the avid, right, which is basically going to be the one which is going to be up above in the airspace, mevalbel, and mixes everything up. But more savar, another one holds no. Since on the roots it was separate, when it comes up, it still stays separate. That means even though there's going to go into the regular airspace, it still stays separate. Two dots. Rabbi Yudam says, says Rabbi Barasi in the name of Ula. Shlosha oroten. Do you know that there's three types of klaf, okay, that were not processed properly? Matzah, chefa, v'diftera. Three different types. Matzah, kimashmao. Telo maliach udelo kamiach ulafitz. What is matzah? It's got nothing. Doesn't rise, no this, no yeast, no nothing. So same thing. Matzah means you don't have, not in salt, not in flour, not in fatzim. It wasn't processed whatsoever. That's called matzah. Lemayil chata. What is Allah? What's the difference whether I have to know this or not? Right? Leotzat Shabbat. To do it taking out from one reshut to another reshut. Because one of the avom lachot is taking out, hotzah. Kama shiuro. How much is a shiur? Right? In order to come and to wrap over a small little tiny weight of lead. The kama, and how much is that? Rabbi says, ki riva deriva, right? It's a revi'it of a revi'it of the mishkal, the smaller size of pumpadita. So it's a revi'it of a revi'it. Okay, that was the first one. Matzah. Another type of skins. Chefa. What is chefa? The maliach. It's salted. The lo kamiach ulavis, but it doesn't have any flour. It doesn't have any me'afatzim. It doesn't have the, I don't know how you say me'afatzim in literal English. Gallnuts. Yeah. The mayin chata what's halacha? What is this? What do we need to know this? What's that Shabbat? Kama shiudo hamal kedetan. Or kedei lasok kamiyah. When you have the or chefa, it's in order to make a kamiyah, meaning that you have enough in order to cover over a kamiyah. Remember, the kamiyah were the amulets that people used to wear for different things. Okay. Diftera. What is the last one? Diftera. The maliach mekamiyah velo afitz. No. You put it, salted it, you put it in flour, but you don't use the walnuts. Shabbat, also Shabbat. What is the shiur for this? In order to write the get. So that's why we actually brought this down, by the way. Right, to do with that, you're not going to write the get, not on niyar machuk, ve'lo diftera. So we wanted to explain the three different types of diftera. Chachamim akshinim, but the chachamim come and they say you're allowed to write on diftera. Man chachamim, who's chachamim? Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, kavet amubet, when to be, Rabbi Elazar he. It's Rabbi Elazar and Shamua. Ta'amar, but he says edem mesira karte. So since edem mesira karte, so therefore, right, that's why he's coming over here, and he says that according to Rabbi Elazar, the get is not going to be kosher unless it's given in front of witnesses. So for since edem mesira, right, they're the ones that they read it, right, before giving over the get, there's no suspicion of forging anything because they're reading it, and then they give it over. So for there's no problem. Amar Rabbi Elazar and says Rabbi Elazar, this is the Amorah Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar and Shamua is a Tana, and this is Rabbi Elazar the Amorah. So Amar Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Elazar, look, Rabbi Elazar didn't permit it, ela lealtar, only if she brought it immediately, in order to know that she was divorced. Aval mikam v'adasayim, but if it took her from now until 10 days, meaning that if she waited, right, and the kol sheken if she waited more than that, right? Lo, he doesn't. Why? It could be that maybe there was a tnai in the get, and she was mizayef, meaning that since it's so easy to forge it, maybe she erased it or she did something to it, and then it's going to be a problem. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Even if it's going to be from now until 10 days, even if there was going to be a condition, the witnesses are going to remember. Meaning witnesses remember from now until 10 days. They'll remember it. Maybe after, maybe not, but now until, for sure, they're going to remember. But Rabbi Elazar says, Rabbi Elazar, that's only going to be kosher and gittin. But in other documents, no, you can never write it on diftera or niyar machuk. It's written that when you're talking about dinim amonot, it has to be something, it has to be written on something which could stand for many, many days. This cannot be standing for many days, so it doesn't help. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he argues, he says, no, afilu shtarot, it also helps. They asked Rabbi Yochanan, we wanted it that should stand for many days. It should be for a long time. And so we're only giving them an etzet tova. And therefore it's going to be an etzet tova. We're not going to hold it. We're just going to do the Mishnah. The get. Mishnah kavbet amubet. 22b the Mishnah. Everybody's kosher to write a get. Even a cheresh katan, even a deaf mute, a person that's mentally incompetent, or a katana minor. Haisha kotevet gita. A woman could write her own get. Haish kotevet shovaro, and the man could write his own shovar for his own ketubah that he paid her off. So that's the receipt. Shem kiyuma get, because the kiyuma get is going to be with the signature. Have a wonderful day.